There once were two lumberjacks. Both were skilled, both were hardworking, and both were determined to win. And the challenge was simple. Whoever would fell the most trees in 1 month time would be the victor. And so they went every day, axe in hand, together at the beginning of the day, right into the forest. One of the two lumberjacks was working like an absolute machine. From the first tree in the morning until it was absolutely dark, he would chop away without a break. He wouldn't have any pause whatsoever. Because he knew that the more effort I put in, the more it is that I'm guaranteed the victory of the contest. The other lumberjack, however, was a little bit different. Yes, together in the morning with the other lumberjack, they would go in at the same time, and at the evening, sweaty and tired, they would leave the forest together. But every day, like clockwork, in the middle of the day, he would take a little break. Just about 12 o'clock, in the middle of the day, he would leave. Now, imagine that you're the lumberjack who is actually still chopping away. He would think, wait a minute, I've got an edge here. Every hour that the other guy leaves, I am winning more. And so this went on day after day, week after week. And he kept pushing harder and harder because he knew that the victory would be his. But to his big surprise, at the end of the month, when all the trees were counted, he actually had lost. And he was in shock. He went to the other lumberjack and said, "This is not possible. How can you have won all the times? When you were away, I kept working. I have put so much work in, so much more work in than you. It cannot be possible that you have won." And then the other lumberjack was smiling and held up his axe, and it was noticeable that the blade was still sharp. He said, "I wasn't resting, I was sharpening my blade." And that is exactly why we're here today in this Logistically Speaking stream. Because in today's world of logistics, fulfillment, and fierce competition, the old rule of grind harder and automatically win is actually still broken. You are the builders, you are the optimizers, the fixers. It is actually your task to make sure that you have the right equipment and that the equipment is done right. So use this stream here today, this Logistically Speaking stream, as your edge. It's your time to step back, take a couple hours from your day, don't keep chopping away, but sharpen your blade, sharpen your tools, make sure that you have the right process in place. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lynn Academy 2025 Logistically Speaking stream. I hope that everybody has found their headset right now, and I would like to quickly introduce you to what we have in store today. So the first panel, expert panel, I'm very excited about is going to be about shipping smart, about choosing the right shipping provider for you and your e-commerce growth. After that, we have another panel, which is about the retail range expander. We're going to talk about drop shipping there. And then we're going to have a little break. So there's a couple of things you've noticed that the headphone, you can dial the volume down slightly if you want on the back side. You can see that color here is all green, which is of course great for a lumberjack such as me. Feels right at home here in the forest, but it also corresponds with the color that you have on your headset. So if you leave after this, maybe after the break, don't take your headset with, you can leave it there, and if you come back, make sure that you have the green color on, because the other side will have a blue color. You will have seen the app as well. So please use this, because the panels are only as great as the experts and the audience together. Right? Because we want to make this as interactive as possible, so you can download the app, go to the session that we're in right now, and you can put your QA your questions in there. We'll have time at the end of the panel for your questions. So write them in, and we'll make sure that we'll cover as many questions as possible at the end of the session. Now, I hope they're not afraid, because I have a big old axe here on stage, but I would like to have a small applause for our first panel. Please welcome them on stage. All right, let's get right into it. I hope everybody can hear me well. I would like to start with some quick introductions of these wonderful panelists, and they can do that themselves. So, Bobbie, a quick introduction and a fun fact.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Bobbie Ttooulis. I'm the Group Marketing Director for Global Freight Solutions. We're one of the integrated shippers on Linworks. And fun fact, and I absolutely hate this, hands up, who knows, God, the comedian, I've forgotten the comedian's name. Anyway, fun fact, when I came to London as a very poor student graduate, I needed to get a job, and I trained in Starbucks as a barista.
Very
coffee,
good.
Simon. And I was fired after a week for spilling very hot coffee onto somebody's crotch.
Okay,
Accident.
very good. Simon, over to you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Simon Ball. I'm Operations Director of Character.com. We're a long-time Linworks customer. My fun fact is I used to work in America, and 1 year the facility that I was in charge of, half of it disappeared in a tornado, and we had to manage getting up and running again. We were fulfilling for automotive customers then, and we were up and running again in less than a week with half the factory.
I was just about to say, that doesn't sound like a fun fact at all to me, but it's
It wasn't fun at the time, but it was, luckily no one was hurt, but opening your eyes to just the power of what tornadoes could do.
And doing that in a week, that is some operational excellence right there. So
Yeah. The guys that did the electrics and set everything up basically just did a partition wall. Very impressive, but yeah. That's
very nice, very nice. Hukam.
I'm the director of AMH brands. We've got 2 brands in our company. Where's That From, which is a footwear business, and Northern Gym Equipment, which is a gym equipment business. My fun fact is that I twilight as a DJ, just looking at all you guys with your headphones on. So if anyone is getting married or is having a party, let me know.
That is great stuff. That is great stuff. So today we're here to talk about shipping, right?
Yeah.
Choosing the right shipping provider for you. And just like Chris Timmer said in his opening keynote, it is not just about plugging one system to another system. It is about what does it mean for your customers and how can you elevate your customer experience with shipping. So I hope that we can find some answers to that in this panel here today. And I would like to start just as if it was from the beginning. So all of you have a lot of experience in the business, which is great. So you have made some mistakes, you have made some wins. But what if you would start today, Simon, with the business, and you would have to pick your shipping provider? How would you go about that? How would you find the right shipping provider?
Good question. For us, we always started with established names. We use the Royal Mail, for example, but more than that, it's do you have a good vibe with? It's still a people business, so do you have a good vibe with who you're working with? A lot of these are large entities. Do you feel that the person you're dealing with can solve problems? Because we all know in logistics, you're going to have issues. Stuff's going to get lost. Problems are going to happen. There's going to be issues that have to be dealt with, and it's how you deal with them.
And Hukam, say if you're indeed approaching this as of a new business, what would a common mistake be when you're just new in the business? You're selecting your first supplier, first shipping partner.
I'm not sure about a common mistake, but I think the important thing to start with to avoid mistakes is looking at product and customer. So if you're shipping, for example, small parcels versus large bulky items, you need to use different couriers. Different people have got different expertise. And then in terms of customer, looking at who is your customer. For example, if I'm selling a £500 t-shirt, let's say I sell Gucci t-shirts, for example.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything bad about certain couriers, but you'd want to use a more premium courier, right? Because giving your customers a good experience end-to-end, tracking from the start to the end is really important. So I think to avoid mistakes, those are 2 key things to look at first. And if it's a new business, obviously you want to use your courier as a selling point and say, look, I have this capability. If it's expensive stuff, then you've got really premium service. If it's like large, bulky stuff, you've got the ability to call customers and say, hey, I'm around the corner, are you home? Like that kind of stuff is quite important.
I see. And Bobbie, then, speaking from GFS and from your knowledge on the other side, how would you approach this? How do you approach a new retailer coming to you? Do you guide them, or what are common things that you see?
Yeah, no, I think I think there's when when we deal with brands, obviously one of the first conversations is about price.
Exactly.
Okay, and that's very important, especially in today's climate. But what I would say, and it comes back to Simon's point, is don't just look at the obvious, which is how much cheaper can they get it for me?
Okay.
Because when it really matters, okay, your delivery partner, you need to be able to trust them that when things go wrong, and they will go wrong, no matter how much contingency you think about, whatever, things will go wrong. You've got to ask yourself, how confident am I that this person's going to have my back?
I see.
Because at that point, the fact that you've saved 2 pence on a parcel is really nothing compared with the risk and the impact it's going to have of those orders not getting to your customers, what it's going to do to your brand, what it's going to do to your customer experience. So think beyond price and ask yourself, will that provider have my back? Do I trust them?
It's interesting.
And it's instinct, because at that point it is instinct, because the only time you're going to know that is when something does go wrong.
I see.
So,
I see.
yeah.
Let's dive into the cost aspect a little bit, because it's indeed, like you say, it's very important. I believe there's almost like a balance, right, with cost and the quality. How would you, and over to you again then, Simon, like how would you find something like a balance between the cost and the quality that you get? Do you measure that, or do you?
Yes, I mean, ultimately we will choose a shipping solution that is financially viable for that marketplace that we're on. So in some cases, we do a lot of work on Amazon. There are certain shippers that have to be used. You can't just choose anyone. We will make use of untracked services. We'll make use of 2-day shipping if needed. On bulk shipping, we will do air freighting, where we have to get product in. So the logistics cost isn't the cost of everything. So I'll air freight if I have to get product in certain places. So for us, it's not just the delivery, the well-known KPI of on-time delivery or pickup time. It's also how quickly you can have your product available to sell in marketplaces. That's really important for us, especially when it's a marketplace like FBA that's selling. So I think the standard now is so good generally.
Yeah.
There is a certain expectation to be in the game.
And
So
from where,
you have to have a differentiator.
from where does that expectation come? From the marketplace, like you said, with Amazon setting certain standards, or is it from from your customer, from the consumer side, that they want to have a certain?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it is from the consumer. They have an expectation, and they'll make purchasing decisions based on timeliness. We all know that.
Yeah.
But I think certainly, from my point of view, in the last year, there's been a lot more of a shift of emphasis away from speed to perhaps cost.
Yeah.
So people will be willing to wait that extra day. We sell T-shirts in some cases.
I see.
We don't necessarily need that there.
Well,
tomorrow.
somebody who sells a wide range would be you, because you go from shoes all the way to gym equipment. How do you handle the cost versus quality balance with that?
Well, it's very different because, for a courier to deliver a small parcel, a box of shoes, is not massively difficult if it's going into their system.
Yeah.
But for the gym equipment side of things, we've got products that are 2 meters long. We have products that are the size of a shoebox but weigh 30 or 40 kilos. So for those kind of products, the issues that can potentially happen can cause a customer to get basically really pissed off with us.
Okay.
So for example, we've had lots of instances where a 30 kilo dumbbell goes to a customer, it gets lost, it gets damaged, that's a £200 order, and then you get a horrible Trustpilot review, you get a really bad review. So for that aspect of the business, it's important to use a carrier where the customer can feel like they can actually follow the journey, and if the parcel's getting lost, it's got an easy access point, so we can go to them and say, hey, this is lost. Can we rectify this? We need to send out something new. I think that's a really important part of it. And actually knowing the difference between when a customer's ordered a lot of products and it costs a lot of money, you need to go for that more premium service.
I see, I see.
Yeah.
So what we're actually finding out here is that if you begin, you need to go with somebody that you feel that you can trust, and over time that relationship will grow. But from what I hear here now, for all these different products, you can't really make do with one or maybe even two shipping providers, shipping vendors anymore. So you would end up one way or another with multi-carrier,
Yeah.
with some sort of multi-carrier strategy. What can you tell us about that?
Gosh, there's so much here to unpack in terms of multi-carrier. Um, our, our advice would always be start by going multi-carrier.
Okay.
Now you're probably thinking, well, that's just not scalable. It's too much. It's too difficult. But actually, just hear me out in that. Go with multi-carrier to spread risk.
Okay.
All right. To give you the flexibility across different choices of services and carriers, because let's face it, not a single carrier can do everything and do everything to the same standard. And go multi-carrier because we keep coming back to the whole idea of the customer delivery experience and how vital it is to the success of your business. And what research shows us time and time again, and if you're here tomorrow, you'll hear Richard Lim talking about how the e-commerce landscape is changing. And we do research with retail economics every year. We've done it for the last 3 years. And what's been consistent every year is that one of the biggest drivers of basket abandonment, so when you've paid to get a customer to your website, to your checkout, one of the biggest reasons why they will abandon their purchase and bounce off your site is because they don't see the delivery options they get.
Oh, because they would only see that towards the end.
So I would say go multi-carrier for the practical operational reasons of spread your risk. You need contingency for the customer experience of being able to offer them wider options. But also, if you work with a single multi-carrier partner, it means you're not going to get penalized because you're spreading your volumes across multiple carriers. If you work with a single multi-carrier partner, then you can benefit from their buying power and you're not going to get penalized because you've got.
But
small
who would
volume.
then decide which of those vendors the shipment would go with if you use GFS, for instance?
Well, to
So
Hakam's point.
Yeah, so we used to
Yeah.
use GFS, and it's a good service because you have the option to use lots and lots of different carriers. And then let's say, for example, you're like, I want to sell into Europe. You have one destination to say, talk to your GFS account manager and say, hey, can I add on DHL? Can I add on this? And then they add it to your account. And then in Limworks, you can just get a quote and see what's the cheapest option. So you can very easily add on a new part of the business from just having one relationship. Whereas if you have a relationship with Raw Mail, then you have to go and speak to International, and they take 2 weeks to get you back a price. The price makes no sense. You got to go back to them, and it's like a 3-month process until eventually you get something going. Whereas with GFS, you can just day one, hey, we have this option, let's go.
But also, would you agree that if you're speaking to a single carrier, then obviously they're going to be a bit more biased towards their own products and services? Whereas if you're speaking to someone that's representing multiple carriers, and really the question goes back to, okay, what's your brand, who's your customer, what's the product, what's important for you? But there's a really important point on cost, right? And I know everybody is cost conscious here, and rightly so, but don't underestimate your customer's willingness to pay for delivery if they want a certain thing. So one of the tips or advice I would ask you to take away today is give your customers breadth of choice, give them a free option, but also offer them the premium services, because again, research shows that this is really important to them, and let them choose if they want to pay or not. That's not going to affect your bottom line, and your customer's happy because you're giving them the choice.
I see. And so how would you then decide? You also use multiple different partners. How do you decide when to bring on another one if things are perhaps seemingly going okay?
Yeah, I don't disagree with what's just been said, although my personal approach has been slightly different. I prefer to negotiate directly with carriers. So far, I'm not against it in principle. The other thing I think is important is you don't want to make it too complex for your warehouse either. You've got people that've got to deal with these different channels. And if you have the product going, if I have an international product going in the wrong distribution lane, the customer's not going to see that. So I think you can bring too much complexity as well. Although one of the strengths, I think, for something like Lineworks, not only what Hackam talked about, is the rules engine. The rules engine in terms of how you apply what shipping process to take. As we've got more complex and we've done more specialist services depending on what we're sending, the benefit of setting up the rules engine is it does remove that. But never forget the physical effect on the floor. It's not just an electronic system effect. Yeah.
No, there's always all the steps that you need to do, throwing them in different baskets and so. And you just mentioned international shipments as well. Is that you do that a lot? Is that more challenging, or is it maybe even easier, or because you use everywhere tracked?
Yeah, I mean, about 2/3 of what we send is ultimately exported. The bulk of it is going in large container shipments or flying, but on D2C as well, we do international. So yes, what I've found in the last couple of years is it's gone from a more generic solution to specific solutions for lanes. So I'll have a solution for Germany, a solution for the US, but I always try and say to carriers, I want to give them as much volume as possible.
Yeah.
Because
I'm sure they'd like to hear that.
You need a win-win situation. You can't. You've got to give volume to carriers to justify their effort for picking up and moving through. Yeah, and it's a tough tightrope to walk because you want leverage for volume, but you always need contingency. You know, because honestly, every carrier I've dealt with has given me price increases that were not justified and I was upset about, and I've had to react by by moving volume to another carrier. That's just the nature of the world, I
see.
think. You know?
And Hukam, how do you must have had these price increases probably as well. How do you handle that? Do you immediately up the price for your customers, or do you also look at other solutions, or do you diversify more?
It's interesting, actually. Do you know why they increase their prices? Obviously, there's a portion where they're like, things get more expensive, but sometimes companies like DPD, the salesmen get commission.
Oh.
So what they want you to do is they want you to leave, and then they want to get you back, because then they get the commission twice, and they already know you.
That's an inside tip there, right?
Is that what you do?
Somebody from DPD in the audience.
Someone from DPD. But basically, if you understand that, I think that's a bit of a conversation where you can kind of say, look, I'm not going to leave. So this price increase isn't like, that's not really a strategy that's going to work with me. If I leave and you keep increasing the prices, you won't really hear from me again. I think that's part of it, understanding people's motivation. And then I think the way I've always combated it is by showing people growth and saying, look, in the last year, I was doing X, now I'm doing 3X. So don't put my prices up because I'm giving you more business.
That's great.
Let's instead think about how we can get the cost down, because you get the cost down, maybe I can lower my prices, maybe I can give you even more volume.
I think that really plays in what Simon also said about this relationship building that you have to do, with any supplier, any vendor you work with.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know who in the audience is an Amazon FBA seller, but obviously costs have been in FBA have risen steadily, and our strategy is to try and do more seller fulfilled this year, and precisely what you're talking about, that volume can come from you then, as you take volume away from FBA.
Do you also do business to business shipments?
Yes, we do.
Do you treat that differently? Do you notice that, is there a different customer experience if you're sending it?
We do a little bit B2B, and we will do directed shippers for this, for specific lanes. Most of what would be regarded as B2B for me is bulk shipments into FBA, whereas effectively we're moving it for ourselves. But again, it's a different thing. It's obviously you're triggering customs and duties then because of the volume you're talking, which isn't always the case on others. It's a big hit win and also a big hit miss if you don't get it right. And again, dealing with Amazon, if they can screw you over in terms of getting in delivery slots, it's going to happen. So you need partners that are willing to try different things. I mean, I've had deliveries at 3 a.m. in a Saturday morning because it's the only time you can get a slot. Certain delivery partners will not work like that. They want a standard day the appearance. So you've got to be willing to have a partner that will do stuff and flexible to get slots.
So the flexibility, that's also something that GFS does. How do you see a lot of different requests, or do you expand your range as well if you see that there's maybe places that can't be reached or more difficult to reach? Because early in the morning we also had another session talking about where do you ship to. There's certain areas in the UK or overseas that are very difficult to reach.
Yeah. The answer to that is no. We cover everything. We cover everything because we've got, again, because we are working with all the partners, when you add all those partners' networks together, both domestic and international, there's very few places that we can't get your parcel to. I think flexibility is a really tough one because it can mean so many things. There's operational flexibility, like Simon just said, having to have flexible collection times. There's flexibility in the volumes that you have to handle because like we have a customer, for example, hampers.com, which you may or may not have heard of. If you don't know them, they sell hampers, food hampers, drink hampers. Now, 78% of their business goes through the tills in 5 weeks of the year. So that peak period for them is make or break for their business. So they need a partner that's going to give them the flexibility to scale really fast, come down, also give them that contingency and everything.
Yeah, so it's very important then to understand what the business is like.
Flexibility can mean so many things. But I think you have to look at both. You have to look at flexibility, so the ability, being agile. What do you need so that you've got the agility you need to run your business? And you need the contingency. What do you do when those events or things happen, whether it's a weather storm or whether it's changes, tariff changes. We've got Windsor framework coming in now. How is your partner getting you ready, prepared for that? I mean, when Brexit came, we were working with our customers for over a year to make sure they each had Brexit plans in place.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, like, how would you then measure or check the performance? So, of course, the difficult thing that you as a retailer have is you do all the work. You make a beautiful website, you put your products on there, you do your SEO, you have a nice box, you ship it, and then it's away. And you're giving it away to your partner, shipping partner, and then it's out of your reach, but you still should have some way of quality control or checking, I don't know, what kind of metrics, or I'm just very keen to understand how you guys are solving that, how you guys are checking.
I think you answered the question. I think there's the vanity operational metrics, right? There's the KPIs like first time success rates, failed deliveries, whatever. Those are all very necessary, but the vital one is going to be what's your customer going to say about you. So Trustpilot score, just like the Amazon score is like you live or die by that. So at the end of the day, it's the customer experience.
So you rate your shipping partners based on Trustpilot scores as well?
It's a big flag. If someone's saying, DPD is this, that, and the other, like we had somebody, I won't name the carrier, but it was a heavy parcel. And they basically threw it over a fence, and it broke a patio tile, which is like crazy, right? That's a big cost to a person, and that is obviously a big metric. But for me, the biggest metric that I use, obviously Trustpilot is a big one, but it's collection timings. If I have said there's a collection, like we're doing our collection at 5 p.m. and nobody turns up, big problem. If another big thing is, if they come at 5 p.m. and there's stuff left over, we obviously need a relief and making sure we can get the relief on time. So there are certain couriers that we've worked with that are like, we want 48 hours notice on any relief collections, but we can't always do that because our business is quite fast paced. Sometimes something will come back in stock and the sales skyrocket and these things happen. So again, it comes back to relationships about actually being able to get that collection on time. So when we were doing the gym equipment business, we always had a problem because the sales were up and down. And the biggest KPI we had was, are we getting all our stuff out of the warehouse every day? That was the only real KPI we had. And basically moving towards that meant that we had to go through a few different carriers until we eventually landed on one which we could call up at 8 p.m. and be like, look, we've still got 4 pallets left, please take them. And they would come.
That's really good to hear.
I 100% agree. With every carrier we work with, exactly that response. they will respond and fix deliveries or help us get there as well.
So yeah, not everything is perfect. Sometimes things get chucked over fences and stuff, but you do have people who care and who want to make sure that the packages get
Yeah,
get
and
collected
to
as
your
well.
point as well, we were talking about relationships before. When that issue happened, it was our account manager who basically gave us money back. We gave it to the customer,
Okay.
assured us nothing would ever happen again. They then found that driver. He was reprimanded. I don't know what they did to him, but I'm sure he's still okay. But and he sorted that for us. And after that, it developed our relationship. And then these sort of KPIs we were talking about, I was like, look, we're having all these issues. Can you fix them? And it was a relationship that we had that sorted it all out.
But do they then report back to you as well on their delivery rates or anything like
Should
that?
do.
I mean, that
Yeah.
that stuff is kind of visible. I think it's the stuff that isn't visible. Like when there's
Yes.
something that's left behind, you see that the delivery's not on time. But you need to know why, and it's that KPI behind it that's important.
And also carriers will measure themselves when they have the first scan. That's no good if you picked and packed the product the day before in their
Yeah.
scan, you know. So I always tell all carriers, I don't really care about what your metrics are. The minute we've picked and packed it, the customer gets a message saying they're expecting it. That's when my clock starts. Yeah?
Okay.
So it might be late on a Friday and you don't count your pickup until a Monday, potentially, although I try and avoid that. That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the clock started on Friday.
So what are then ways that you can maybe there are different expectations that you mentioned, like for shoes that you send or a nice T-shirt with a character on it and the gym equipment. Do you notice different expectations and how would you recommend? How would you recommend using the expectations that you know you have to make the right decisions when it comes to multi-carrier
If we're
shipments?
talking, customer expectations, again, if you look at the research of the so UK-based consumers, the research that went out with Retail Economics that went out to over 20,000 UK consumers.
Yeah.
Their expectations, the one single thing that was consistent across all demographics, all age groups, whatever, was the reliability. So the trust that when they placed an order, they expected that order to arrive on time. So, having tracking, transparency of where the parcel was in the journey, and most importantly, notifications. If there was going to be a problem with the parcel, like it's going to be late or whatever, there's only a problem if you haven't told them about it. And for them, a failed delivery is when a parcel, you haven't told them that there's an issue with that parcel.
And do all shipping providers offer this? This is only for tracked services, right? But what for these just simple letters and that sort of stuff that normally just gets the smaller parcels, the
You
easier
have to
parcels?
manage the expectations of your customers. So one thing I would say is that when you in your checkout, when your customers get to the delivery options page, be very transparent with them about the service that they're picking. Some of our retailers actually say which carrier it is, because to your point, we're seeing that consumers have preferences of, say, Every over whatever, or DPD over somebody else. So be transparent, but also make sure they understand the service they're paying for. An economy service is 3 to 5 days. You're not going to get tracking with it.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
A track service means that you're going to get notifications. So be very clear and transparent about that. So to manage those customer expectations, because if you don't, that's the first step where it goes wrong.
So we just mentioned like peak season as well, and it was also in the opening keynote. It's the most hectic period for anyone here, and I'm sure that if we would have the Lynn Academy in the middle of the peak season, we would have had a very empty hall here. By the way, to the audience, please use the app to put any questions in the QA. I just had a look. It doesn't look so many questions yet, which means that we're either doing really good or I don't know. But getting ready for peak, I think that's a whole different exercise when it comes to shipping. And I want to take a moment to get ready, because there's all kind of different strategies, from working with your cutoff times. And I know some retailers who know exactly how much their shipping vendors can do, and that's when it gets exciting, I guess, because you want to sell as much as possible. You want to ship shipping partners want to ship out as much as they can. How do you balance something like that? Do you do you use more external fulfillment, or would you, make even more, look at more options to ship, or
Uh, Gifts. I give people gifts.
gifts?
So basically, if everyone's got a problem in peak, everyone calls the DPD depot, the Royal Mail depot, I need another collection, I need this, I need that. But they're getting the same thing from like 100 people.
Right.
What puts you to the front of the line? A bottle of whiskey at Christmas, a box of chocolates, something, champagne. At least that puts you higher up the list.
Amazing.
And
That's
then
really
my
high
collection matters more. Do you know what I mean? It goes a
No,
long
there
way.
is relationship. There is relationships locally, isn't
Yeah, and in having a good relationship with your account manager. So our account manager, we've got with DPD especially, because it's weird items. Like we're sending a 2-meter barbell, and then a 50-kilo parcel, and then a yoga mat which is really light. So it's all over the place. But we've got a really solid relationship with him. So in peak season, when it's all going wrong, he will be there to fix it. And we can call him at 7 p.m., 8 p.m., and he'll make sure that either, if they can't get it that day, then at 7 a.m. the next day, somebody is there. And cultivating that relationship, Gifts was a bit of a joke, but it's true, because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
he has a personal relationship with me, and it means that he wants to actually solve our issues. And he sees, and the other second thing as well is growth in the account. The end of the day, money talks, right? If you're a growing account and they can see potential in you, then they're going to want to help you.
What about sort of plan B and plan C then, Simon? Do you have like a backup carrier or any sort of overflow? Or
Yeah. I mean, as I said, we make use of rules engine for us. We model our peak period. We can have a fairly consistent understanding of what that curve is going to look like. We do multi-carrier options to fill it. We run longer hours. We run longer days. We'll run 7 days a week in peak. So we will try and offset risk elsewhere. So we'll move more volume into FBA earlier in the year if we can. We don't just look at the DTC side of it. We will look at B2B side too.
interesting. So you use external fulfillment. That will be coming up later in the stream as well. But you're using external fulfillment as well, like FBA for the peak periods as overflow. But you would not, if it wouldn't be peak, you would maybe not use it as much. Does that change?
Correct. We use FBA consistently.
Okay.
But because our peak is so big relative to standard baseline, and yes, we try and mitigate some of that risk by putting more volume into FBA.
And because of course you have your own website, character.com, do you cut off orders earlier there, or because this is of course your own internal capacity, but how familiar are you with how many extra collections you could potentially get?
The entire volume comes through as a single number for us, split by the channels, but we do it. So my expectation is you get no better service from Amazon than you would from us. We will pick as late as possible, so we get same day shipping.
Okay, very good. I'm starting to look at the Q&A. We don't have that many questions yet, which is okay. We've spoken about a lot of different things. We've spoken about if you're new to the business, how would you know what your what the right shipping vendor is. We've spoken about what about the cost versus quality. It seems here that both are very important, but if you don't deliver on time, if you don't meet the customer's expectation, that €1 or so, or 150 that they might pay in difference is not going to make the difference. Especially maybe the specialist items that are very important to ship. We also know that for different types of products now, there's different expectations. Lower price products, the people who are on the bargain side, they can wait an extra couple of days on their shipments, and you should not be using more expensive shipping methods by standard. Bobbie spoke a lot about multi-carrier fulfillment and how you can leverage different strategies. It sounds like a really smart thing to do, and you have a lot of range that way as well.
If you overcome the operational barriers.
Yeah. And we have spoke a little bit about performance, and we got a couple of interesting insights on that you measure your performance also by what the customers say, not just the dashboards that the shippers have themselves available, but how many parcels they have sent for you. And getting ready for peak, like what you can do there. So I think it's been. Do you have any questions for yourselves or anything else, or do you feel that, we've covered we've covered all the things about how to choose your shipping vendor all the way through from starting to peak or international.
Yeah, I think you've covered
Trying
it
to think of a question for
Okay,
myself.
I'm gonna check one time more if we have any Q&A questions. If the Q&A somehow doesn't work for anyone in the audience, hold your hand up. We can also cover questions that way. But it seems like we have had a very complete session here, and I want to ask everyone to please thank our panelists here today, and
all. Thank you.
and we'll be rounding this session up. Thank you very much.